Well, good morning, everybody. So, standing out here on the Humboldt Bay, north coast of California, kind of wet and cold and rainy and a little bit windy, but still absolutely love being outside. So, any day that I get to roam around the outdoors makes my heart happy. So, I have a question for you all today, and it's one I would love to get your feedback on. So, a few years ago, I was asked a question, and that question was in one of those, corporatized settings where that question was in one of those corporate settings where it was a team building exercise, but I do think it's a very good question. And that question is if you couldn't fail, what would you do? The minute I actually heard that question, the first thing that popped in my mind was this article that I remember reading about a guy who was a multi-million-dollar lottery winner. One of the biggest payouts in history. They did a interview with this guy, and what over time after you read the interview, you realize that this guy had everything he wanted, but he was still missing something. And so they talk about all the multi-million-dollar cars that he has, and hundreds of million-dollar homes, and his life, he's being able to travel where he wants to go. In all metrics, he had everything that you could possibly want. But, all of a sudden he found himself, after a couple of years of living this life, feeling very empty and depressed. And, what he talked about in the article was, even though he had everything, he found himself depressed. And ultimately, staring down the barrel of a gun and talking about taking his own life. And later on in the article, he came to realize that the thing that he needed was not wealth, it was not money, it was the fact that he had no purpose, he had no reason for being. He was not living a life that fulfilled him in any sort of way. He was just, whether he was poor and broke or wealthy and extremely rich, he was still just living in the moment and just spending his life with no direction. He was a ship on the ocean with no sails, just bobbing along to whatever came his way. And I realized, based off that question, what would you do if you could not fail? Because so much of my life has been me chasing success for the sake of success. I was not chasing a dream and I found myself successful in that dream. I was chasing a persona of somebody who is successful. And as I was chasing it, as I was thinking about that question and sitting in this conference room with all these people having their own things that they would respond to, and if they couldn't fail in their stories, it dawned on me, in a lot of ways, I have already failed. And I failed, I failed because I was seeking the wrong thing. I was pursuing the wrong thing. If you are waking up and going to a job and spending more than half your life in a career or pursuing something that at the end of the day doesn't give you any fulfillment, it doesn't give you any joy, it doesn't fill your heart with purpose, in my mind, you've kind of already failed. And that's where I was. I was somebody who kind of already failed. I was always pursuing a person that was in the future and never in the present. I was always pursuing someone that, I could be, and not the person that I am. You never achieve that because the bar is constantly moving. You're chasing a rainbow. That rainbow, your perspective is constantly changing because as you grow, that person, that persona that just keeps changing in your own mind and keeps changing who that person would be. And so you're never happy with yourself, and you're never happy with your career. You're never happy with what you're doing, and it almost becomes a burden. It just becomes something that it's a goal in which can never be achieved. It's a place that you could never arrive. One of the ways that helps me build the foundations of my thoughts, and one of the tools that I use to help me ground, how I'm feeling, not only how I'm feeling, but what I'm thinking, and how to, kind of answer some of my own questions, is simply just kind of write a letter to yourself. And I use that letter in order to not only give myself advice, but to also, think about how a problem is structured and what is some of the underlying problems. And so anyways, I wrote a letter to myself. So here's my letter. This is a letter to my 25-year-old self. If I could kind of go back and talk to my younger self, this is the things that I would do differently. And it's in a lot of ways, this helps me reflect on what I need to do today and in the direction I want to go. So here we go. Hello, Pablo. I'm writing you this letter because I know your future. I know your mistakes. I know the opportunities that you did not take. And I know all the insecurities that you allow to control your mind and your decisions. I also know your heart, and I know how noble your intentions are. I know in your current state that you would never admit that you have attributes that makes you worth knowing, worth loving, and a mind, body, and soul that makes you valuable to the world around you. Pablo, it pains me to say this, and it really does. And I know in your heart you probably don't want to hear it. And frankly, I don't even know if you'll believe it. But here are some traits that make you exceptional. You have an abundance of courage. You work hard. You take pride in everything that you do. You're very loyal. You're kind. You want the best for everyone around you. And you help them seek their success. You have a unique perspective. You're funny. Well, yeah, that's true. You are forgiving. You listen. You are a seeker of knowledge. You are more capable than you would ever admit. You are competent when you want to be. You are a fighter and a lover. Yeah, that's right. That's right, ladies. And yes, the world is better with you in it. Don't let this go to your head. We both know that you have way too much pride. And frankly, you're pretty stubborn. And you are one of the worst procrastinators. And by far, you're not perfect. And you will make a lot of mistakes and bad decisions. Regardless, whether or not you choose to act on what I'm about to say, I'm proud of you. And here's my advice. You waste so much time, life, and energy, and mental anguish being concerned about how people perceive you. You are trying to be a persona and not a capable, competent person. No one really cares. And I don't mean that nobody cares about you. What I'm saying is no one really thinks about you. The reality is they have their own lives, their own goals and ambitions. And because you are so concerned about how other people perceive you, you miss out on all the opportunities that life offers you. When your goals and your actions are directed by a persona and not by the real you, you will never appreciate the success you have in your life. You will never be satisfied. The real you will always be stuck in the future and not in the present. You need to stop acting. You need to start living and stop being so afraid of how people perceive you. Stop being ashamed of the person behind the mask. Become the person that smiles, laughs, dances. The person who's more afraid of missing out on living than the person who is more afraid of what people's judgments are. I know right now you're thinking, I don't even know who the real Pablo is. My goal was that perception, that persona that people respected and loved. That persona is the only thing that gives me direction. If I'm no longer pursuing that better version of myself, then what is my purpose? What is my meaning? And my response to you is this. If today you woke up and you were successful, you had money, you had wealth, you were healthy, people loved you, you couldn't fail, what would you do? I ask this question because today you are waking up and you are successful. Because every time you choose to do something, you become competent in it. You develop the attributes and the skill set that guarantees your success in that domain. Believe it or not, you are extremely wealthy. True wealth is not about having money. Being wealthy is about having access to resources. And let me tell you, your friends, family, your community, along with the freedoms that comes with the country that you live in, make you extremely wealthy. And you can't fail because the only time you fail in life is when you give up pursuing your desires and your goals. Failure is a choice. It's not an outcome. So we are left with this question. The question that when you answer will direct your actions, it will direct your intentions, that will predict your future. The question that determines your meaning or purpose. And that question, yet again, is if you could not fail in life, what would you do? I ask myself that question every day now. The reality is I don't think I can fail. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have hardships. It doesn't mean that things are not going to go well. Sometimes I'm going to really make giant mistakes. It's really because I'm pursuing the things that I want. I'm pursuing the goals that are fulfilling to me. I'm pursuing the goals in a life that I want to live. And regardless where that journey ends, it'll be my journey. I will no longer be caught in the wake of somebody else's decisions. So I hope that letter helped. I also would love to hear from you. If you could not fail, what would you do? And frankly, I'd like to hear why you're not doing it now. Please subscribe if you like what we are doing, and also smash that like button. It really does go a long way. It certainly helps with the algorithm here at the YouTubes. And at the end of the day, I just want to say, I love you all. I want everybody to be successful. I certainly hope some of these things that I've gone through maybe are giving you insight to your life in some of the mistakes that I've made, are things that you could navigate around now. So anyways, I would love to hear your opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Thank you again for joining us. And, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and an exceptional weekend. Anyways, love you all. See you later.